There's something our frantically busy culture doesn't want you to know. The most productive thing you can sometimes do is absolutely nothing at all. We live in a world that has declared war on stillness, that treats every moment of non-activity as a moral failure, that confuses motion with progress and busyness with importance. But what if I told you that this compulsive need to always be doing something is actually preventing you from accomplishing what truly matters? What if the secret to getting things done isn't doing more, but doing less at precisely the right moments? This is about understanding intelligent procrastination, not the lazy avoidance of responsibility, but the profound wisdom of knowing when not to act. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why timing is everything, and how the art of strategic delay can transform your relationship with work, creativity, and life itself. Let's begin with a fundamental misconception. The idea that procrastination is always a character flaw, a sign of weakness, a problem to be solved. This assumes that all action is good action, that doing something is always better than doing nothing, that the mere act of being busy creates value. But this is like saying that a musician should never pause between notes, that a painter should never step back from the canvas, that a writer should never stop to think. The spaces between actions aren't empty, they're full of possibility, brewing with potential, pregnant with the next right move. Intelligent procrastination recognizes that there are seasons to human activity, just as there are seasons to nature. There is a time for planting and a time for harvesting, a time for action and a time for reflection, a time for doing and a time for being. Consider how nature itself practices intelligent procrastination. A seed doesn't immediately sprout the moment it hits the ground. It waits for the right conditions, the proper moisture, the correct temperature. An apple tree doesn't produce fruit year-round. It rests, gathers energy, prepares for the next season of abundance. This isn't laziness on nature's part. This is profound wisdom. The tree that tried to produce fruit continuously would exhaust itself and die. The seed that sprouted in winter would freeze. Nature understands that there is a time for everything, and that forcing action at the wrong time is far more wasteful than waiting for the right time. Yet human beings, in our cleverness, have decided we can override these natural rhythms. We believe we can force creativity, schedule inspiration, and demand results on command. We've created a culture that celebrates the person who works 18-hour days and condemns the person who takes time to think. But here's what happens when you try to force action before it's time. You exhaust your creative resources. You make poor decisions from a place of pressure rather than clarity. And you often end up having to redo work that was rushed in the first place. I've watched people spend weeks struggling with problems that could be solved in minutes if they simply stepped back and allowed solutions to emerge naturally. I've seen brilliant minds tie themselves in knots because they felt compelled to produce immediate answers to questions that needed time to ripen. This compulsive doing is like trying to force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. You don't get faster flowering, you get a destroyed flower. Intelligent procrastination, on the other hand, is like being a skilled farmer who knows that seeds need time in darkness before they can reach toward light. It's the recognition that some of the most important work happens below the surface of consciousness, in what appears to be idle time but is actually incubation time. Think about your own experience. When do your best ideas come to you? Usually not when you're sitting at your desk trying to force creativity. They come in the shower, on walks, while you're doing dishes, in those moments when your mind is relaxed and unfocused. This isn't coincidence, it's how the human mind actually works. The conscious mind is excellent at gathering information and analyzing data. But it's the unconscious mind that makes the unexpected connections, sees the hidden patterns, and produces genuine insights. But you can't access this unconscious processing power while you're in a state of forced concentration. You need to give your mind permission to wander, to play, to apparently do nothing. This is what intelligent procrastination provides. The space for deeper intelligence to emerge. This is why so many breakthroughs happen during vacation, why solutions appear when you've stopped looking for them, why the answer often comes after you've given up trying to find it. You haven't stopped working on the problem, you've just stopped interfering with the solution. The key to intelligent procrastination is learning to distinguish between avoidance and incubation. Avoidance is running away from something because you're afraid or overwhelmed. Incubation is creating space around something because you trust in a deeper process of understanding and creativity. Avoidance feels anxious, guilty, and agitated. Incubation feels calm, present, and aware. When you're avoiding, you're trying not to think about something. When you're incubating, you're holding something lightly in awareness without forcing it to resolve immediately. This distinction is crucial because it separates productive delay from self-destructive delay. Intelligent procrastination isn't about putting things off indefinitely, it's about putting them off until the right moment for action arrives. But how do you know when the right moment has arrived? This is where you must develop what I call temporal intelligence, the ability to sense the rhythm and timing of your own creative process. Just as a musician develops an ear for rhythm and a painter develops an eye for color, you can develop a sensitivity to the natural timing of your own productivity. You begin to notice when you're forcing things versus when things are flowing naturally. You learn to distinguish between productive contemplation and mere postponement. Some decisions need to be made quickly, in the moment, with whatever information is available. These are the decisions of immediate response: what to eat for lunch, which route to take to work, how to respond to a simple question. But other decisions need time to ripen major life choices, creative projects, complex problems that involve many variables. These decisions have their own timing, and rushing them often leads to outcomes you later regret. Intelligent procrastination also recognizes that different types of work require different types of energy. Administrative tasks might be best done when your mind is alert but not deeply creative. Writing or designing might require a different quality of attention entirely. Problem solving might need yet another kind of mental state. Instead of trying to do everything at once, intelligent procrastination involves waiting for the right internal conditions for each type of work. It's like surfing. You don't create the waves, but you learn to recognize when the right wave is coming and position yourself to ride it. This requires a fundamental shift in how you think about productivity. Instead of seeing yourself as a machine that should operate at consistent output, you begin to see yourself as a natural system with rhythms, cycles, and seasons. There's also profound wisdom in understanding what you're not doing when you engage in intelligent procrastination. You're not anxiously checking your phone, consuming media, or filling time with busy work. You're creating genuine space, physical, mental, and temporal space for insights to emerge. This might mean taking a walk without listening to podcasts, sitting quietly without reading, or simply staring out a window without needing to accomplish anything. These activities feel almost transgressive in our culture because they don't produce immediate, visible results, but they produce something far more valuable. They create the conditions in which your deepest intelligence can operate. They allow you to hear the subtle signals that get drowned out by constant activity. Consider how often you've had the experience of struggling with a problem, working on it intensively, making no progress, and then finding the solution appears effortlessly when you least expect it. This isn't mystical, it's the natural result of giving your unconscious mind time to work. The unconscious mind doesn't operate on demand. It works in its own time, according to its own rhythms. Intelligent procrastination is simply the practice of respecting these rhythms, rather than trying to override them through force of will. This doesn't mean becoming passive or lazy. It means becoming more strategic about when and how you apply effort. It means understanding that there are times for intense focus and times for relaxed awareness, times for gathering information and times for letting information settle. But here's where most people struggle with this concept. They've been so conditioned to equate activity with virtue that any form of strategic inaction feels like moral failure. They carry guilt about rest, anxiety about pauses, and shame about any moment that isn't measurably productive. This conditioning runs deep because it's built into the very structure of our economic system, our educational institutions, and our cultural narratives about success. We're taught that busy people are important people, that full calendars indicate valuable lives, that constant motion equals progress. But this is like judging a symphony by how many notes it contains, or evaluating a painting by how much paint was used. The power isn't in the quantity of activity, it's in the quality of timing, the precision of execution, the wisdom of knowing when to act and when to wait. Intelligent procrastination also involves understanding the difference between chronological time and psychological time. Chronological time moves at a constant rate. Seconds, minutes, hours pass uniformly. But psychological time is elastic, expanding and contracting based on your state of consciousness. 5 minutes of forced work can feel like an eternity, while hours of engaged creativity can pass in what seems like moments. A single insight that emerges from patient waiting can be worth more than weeks of effortful thinking. When you practice intelligent procrastination, you're learning to work with psychological time rather than against it. You're aligning your efforts with your natural rhythms rather than fighting them. This brings us to a paradox that lies at the heart of intelligent procrastination. Sometimes the fastest way to get something done is to not do it immediately. Sometimes the most efficient approach is to appear inefficient. Sometimes the most productive strategy is to embrace periods of apparent non-productivity. This paradox exists because human creativity and problem solving don't operate like mechanical systems. You can't simply add more fuel to get faster results. Often, adding more effort actually slows down the process, like trying to remember a forgotten name by thinking harder. The name usually comes only when you stop trying to force it. So how do you practically apply intelligent procrastination? It begins with developing patience with your own process, trusting that not everything needs to be solved immediately, and creating regular periods of unstructured time in your life. It means learning to sit with uncertainty rather than rushing to premature closure. It means becoming comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing, of having unfinished business, of letting some questions remain open until the right answers emerge. Most importantly, it means recognizing that in a culture obsessed with speed and efficiency, one of the most radical acts you can perform is to slow down, to wait, to trust that the universe has its own timing that might be wiser than your urgency. The art of intelligent procrastination isn't about doing less, it's about doing better by doing at the right time. It's about understanding that wisdom lies not just in knowing what to do, but in knowing when to do it. In a world that has forgotten the value of patience, that has lost touch with natural rhythms, that confuses motion with progress, intelligent procrastination offers a different path. The path of strategic stillness, of productive patience, of trusting in the deeper intelligence that emerges when we stop trying to force it. This is perhaps the ultimate procrastination, putting off the compulsive need to always be doing something until you remember the profound power of sometimes doing nothing at all. And in that remembering, you might discover that what you thought was laziness was actually wisdom, what seemed like waste was actually efficiency, and what appeared to be procrastination was actually the most intelligent thing you could possibly do.